Right. So we go. Oh no. So I walk down the corridor, huh? They graduate out of my class, they're seniors now, and they yell across the corridor, Ms.Geeta! I'm like, what? Oh no, so I'm like, what? Oh no, so po. No, boys just like to be funny that way, you know? They're gonna do it. Okay. Alright. So remember the so-co-fo, alright? Otherwise you'll mess up writing the polyatomic ions. You have to write the charges, they're ions. And there is a pattern to it. -1, -1, -2, -2, -3. 1, 2, 3. Okay? It's not that hard to remember. Okay? And then you stop at po, and then it's -1 and +1. Okay? Now, this starts with nitrogen, the element nitrogen. Is that right? So this polyatomic ion is called nitrate. What does it end in? 8. Nitrate. Sulfur will become what? Sulfate. Carbon will become carbonate. Phosphorus will become phosphate. That's a chlorine. So it will become chlorate. Now, if you notice, the first and the last one do not end with oxygen. Everything else that we have written so far ends with an oxygen. Is that right? The first and the last one end with a hydrogen. They are different. All right? So this is nitrogen and hydrogen. It's called ammonium. And it's the only one that has what charge? +1. Oh, I forget the subscripts. Okay. So, you went and wrote the charges. Is that right?
Yes.
-1, -1, -2, -2, -3. Remember, you're not going past 3 -1 +1. You skip the first one and you write the subscripts. 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. That's easy. The pattern repeats itself. Is that right? Okay. Once you name them, we named ammonia. And this one is kind of named, the hydrogen is named first. All right? It's hydroxide. And it's the only one that ends in the ide. Everything else ends in it. A. Okay? The polyatomic ions end in an A. Now, if you reduce the number of oxygen and you make it NO2 -1, it's a night. It is light. Right?
Yes.
It contains 1 oxygen less. So what will the formula for sulfite be?
Oh, it will be
SO3 -2. That is a sulfite. What will be the formula for chloride?
-2.
ClO2 -1. Is that right? That's a chloride. What happened? Wow. Oh, whoa. Okay. I think some button got touched and then it started loading. All right. Close this. All right. Chloride. Imagine that being recorded. It's like still. Everybody is like still when they reach the screen, right? Okay. Chloride. So we got the 10 polyatomic ions that we need for the quiz next class. Is that right? Yes, Sanjay.
So there is like a carbon height, right?
Yeah, technically yes. We can make a carbonite, we can make a phosphide, right? Okay, now, but our goal is to memorize 27 of these. We just don't stop with the 10. Is that right? Now let's see how this goes. Okay, I need some silence. Okay, so that's a chlorate, and chlorine belongs to which family? Halogens, right? So chlorine, bromine, iodine, they all belong to the same family, right? They'll make similar polyatomic ions. So if you have chlorate, if you switch the chlorine for a bromine, what does that become? A bromate. If you switch the chloride for a bromine, chlorine for a bromine, this becomes what? Bromide. Similarly, you will have the iodate, the iodide. Do you understand this? So that's pretty easy to remember, right? Once we know chlorate, we know bromate, we know iodate. Are we good? Now, when you come to the halogen groups, they form more number of polyatomic ions. All right? Whenever a person is, if we say the person suffers from hypoglycemia, what does it exactly mean? You come across the term hypo before. What does hypo mean? More or less glucose in their body. They suffer from hypoglycemia. Less. Hypo means less. So, if I reduce my number of oxygen, are you with me? That chlorine is severely starved of oxygen. What does this become? Hypochlorite. You get it from the chloride. You take away one more oxygen. What does it become? Hypochlorite. Not 8. Hypochlorite. Now, to the chlorate, you add one more oxygen. ClO4 minus 1. Perchlorate. What does that become? Perchlorate.
So just perchlorate, not hyper.
It comes from chlorate. Not hyper. It becomes perchlorate. PER. Perchlorate. Are we good? If you know perchlorate and hypochlorite, you can write hypobromite, hypoiodide, perbromate, periodate. Is that right? They're all similar. Right? You just have to remember the order of these 4. Are we good? Now, we learned charges last unit. Group 1 metals, alkali metals, have what charge? What kind of, how many valence electrons do they have? 1. So, do they like to lose or gain? Lose. And how many will they lose?
1.
And what charge do they obtain when they lose their electron? Positive 1. Once you lose or gain, it has a charge. Right? Only when it doesn't lose or gain, it's neutral. So it becomes positive 1. Now, say you have sulfate. Sulfate is SO4 negative 2. Is that right? To this, you are adding a hydrogen, and hydrogen's charge is +1. Correct? Say I make a polyatomic ion, HSO4. That's a +1 and a -2. What is the resultant charge? -1. So if you add a hydrogen, the polyatomic ion becomes hydrogen sulfate. And the charge goes down by 1. Does that make sense? Are Alright? These polyatomic ions have been in existence for a very long time. Hydrogen sulfate is the recent ways scientists have started naming it. People also call it bisulfate. Alright? People also call it bisulfate. Hydrogen sulfate and bisulfate are one and the same. Say you have carbonate to which you are adding hydrogen. What does it become? HCO3 minus. That is hydrogen carbonate. You also call it bicarbonate. Do we add bicarbonate when we bake stuff? When we cook? You kids must have heard. Baking soda, bicarbonate. Is that right? So, let's go to this list of polyatomic ions that you have to memorize. This 27 list. We pretty much, by learning the Ono-Sokopo clone, you have learned most of the polyatomic ions. But there are some that are exceptions. Circle the cyanide, CN. Alright? Circle the permanganate. Circle the permanganate. Come to the other side. You have the acetate. Acetate, thiosulfate. Thio just means, the word thio just means oxygen is replaced by sulfur. Thio. So SO4 negative 2 is sulfate. Is that right? If you replace one of the oxygens with sulfur, what does it become? Do you see that? If you replace an oxygen with a sulfur, you include the word thio. So that's a thiosulfate. Peroxide, chromate and dichromate are different. Is that right? Phosphate and arsenic are in the same group, so you know phosphate, you know arsenic. Is that right? Does that make sense? Okay. So we pretty much covered the list. If you memorize in this fashion, I think you will memorize it really quickly. It's not going to be very difficult for you to memorize the 27 polyatomic ions. Get the Ono-Sokopo clone down and then practice a few times and you should be good. Yes, Patyam?
How about iodate?
We just did chlorate. We did perchlorate. We said the periodate is the same dose